Welcome to the Coming Home Well podcast, the show that educates, supports, and advocates for the veteran community. Your host, Dr. Tyler Pieron, U.S. Army retired, will bring you exciting conversations with amazing guests about resources, research, and military history, all geared to helping our warriors to come home well. Here's your host, Dr. Tyler Pieron.
Welcome back to Coming Home Well. I'm Tyler Pieron, and today we're going to be talking about something that everybody has to deal with at some point. What do you do when you stop working? And I don't mean like, what do you do, play golf, though that's an option, but how do you survive? How do you support yourself? And really, how do you live your life the way you were living without working? There's a lot of ways to do it, and military folks have a lot more things to take into consideration than the civilian folks, but they also have a few leg ups that other folks don't have. But it's not something you can find easily. How do you take into account, hey, I have a military pension. Hey, I have a VA disability. I have healthcare for life. I have VA healthcare. These are all huge important things for determining how in the world you're going to be able to retire or slow down or stop working altogether. These are all different options. But how in the world do you come up with the right answer for you? Well, we have somebody that has been there, done that, and decided to develop a podcast, YouTube, it's really a YouTube, to answer those questions, because really those answers aren't a lot of places. You can get little bits and pieces here and there, but the Enlisted Millionaire, it's up on YouTube, Randy Senkle is here to join with us. The Enlisted Millionaire is the name of the YouTube. It's pretty darn cool. I've seen almost every single episode. When I was introduced to Randy, we had a great conversation, and I said, oh, we need to have you on because there's so many things that people really don't know and understand, and there really isn't a lot of places to go get it. Randy, thank you so much for joining us on Coming Home Well.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Looking forward to today.
So, what is the Enlisted Millionaire?
Yeah, so it's a channel I created. I'm Randy Senkle, like you said, and I retired from the Air Force after 21 years. I was a senior master sergeant in the Air Force, so that's an E8.
I'm glad you
And
translated because I'll never get the Air Force ranks right.
right, yeah.
Like you
I
could be
mean,
a first
sometimes
sergeant like 4 different ranks. So
that is three technically, but yeah. And I, like you said, I was a first sergeant for 7 years, and so with that, I was a first sergeant as an E7 and a first sergeant as an E8. They take you out of your specialty and put you in that role. And so I was IT by trade, cyber. I was never in a cyber unit as a first sergeant. You're not allowed to, can't be in that same unit. So anyways, when I
that's so
retired,
interesting.
yeah, it's very unique.
It is.
So it's a position, not a grade.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're I'll come back to the first sergeant piece in a minute, but so when I retired from the Air Force, I actually ended up, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life afterwards. When I grow up is what I always kind of reference it as. And I have mentors along the way that, helped me figure that out. So I became a project manager. I work for a finance company. And as I was trying to, talk to people about, different investments that I've made in my career. I purchased a home at 21 years old. Most people, even in my civilian career, like, how did you do that? Well, guess what? I used the VA loan. Most people, that's a
Right.
huge, valuable asset that military members are able to have because you could purchase a home zero down, which not a whole lot of 21-year-olds are out there,
Very, very few.
20% down to be able to buy a house. So use benefits, that came from the military. I got my degree because of the military. All these things that military members have available to them. And then over time, it's like, hey, your VA benefit from a VA compensation, that's worth something. Your retirement pension, that's worth something. How do you put a dollar on that to help make decisions? I had a financial advisor, a free one that I got through another veteran program. And he's like, man, you're in a really good place. You can, I was like, hey, I think I want to retire at 57. He's like, yeah, you could do that for sure. Obviously it always depends on your lifestyle and stuff like that. But so I started the channel to help others because I was mentoring people at work. and they'd ask me all these questions, and they're like, how do you know all this stuff? You need to tell more people. And that's a whole nother kind of funny story. But so started the channel, and not really knowing that it was going to grow as fast as it did.
Hmm.
And it's been fun sharing and seeing people that actually are, have these same questions or have other questions that I didn't really think about for myself. Um, so so the idea is letting you understand the value of your benefits so you can make informed decisions about your future.
Yeah,
So
one of the
that's what the
things I
channel's about.
really one of the things I really liked about it is, the enlisted millionaire. So it's not like, hey, yes, I'm a major with, 12 years and I'm making mega bucks. What kind of gold bullion do I buy? No, this is,
Right.
regular folks making just smarter decisions, but also looking at all the options that are out there. Buying a home or, investing in a home as you move, as you're serving, but also what is the value of a VA disability? What is the value of a military retirement? And I
Yeah.
don't think people really realize how valuable those things are. They might see the dollar value month to month, but when you're comparing it to all of the things that you go online, like, hey, can I retire at X age? What is my social security going to be? Well,
Yeah.
oh, and how much do I have in my 401k and all these things? They're not designed to incorporate all these other streams of income or lack of expenditures, especially with healthcare. Because let's be honest, healthcare is the number one reason people can't retire. So it's fascinating that you approach it from that avenue.
Yeah. Like I said, I work for a finance company, and there's people at work that are, saying, I can't retire. I mean, some of these people make a lot of money. They're like, I can't retire early because it'll cost me about $15,000 a year in health care. And
Hmm.
so that adds up pretty fast. And if you're retired military, that's just not something you have to worry about. I mean, you're
Right.
obviously, if you're a guard reserve, it's going to factor in a little different depending on
Hmm.
how that service is. But if you're active duty, it starts right when you retire, and you're paying very low premiums for you, and if you have a family, it's still low. So
One of the things I liked is that you incorporate a lot of the different aspects, the guard, the reserve, retiring, the gray area retirees. So, folks, if you're at all involved in the military environment, go check out the Enlisted Millionaire YouTube channel because it's not just, oh, okay, if you're active duty, this is how it is. No, Randy goes through like pretty much every possible facet of military service. Uh, I'm sure there's a few out there that he hasn't gotten to yet, which is why, he's so popular. But it's not just a cookie cutter. Here's how I did it. It's how you can do it too.
right, and that's what I think is helpful. I show you how it looks for me,
Hmm.
but i- anybody that's served in the military knows there's so many factors that go into it. Whether you're enlisted officer, whether you did 30 years or you did 20, you did, retired as an E6 or an O6, those numbers are going to look very different just from a pension perspective. Then, maybe you got 0% VA disability or 100. Maybe you have a family, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a GS job afterwards, or
Hmm.
maybe you work in the civilian sector, or you have kids that want to go to school. Like all these things have different values, that change the value for you. So I show you, give you like the formulas on how to do it. And I'm actually working on a website that's going to have calculators. So it's a little tricky. I'm not a web designer. It's a little trying to do it myself, but
Yeah.
that'll help people because these questions come in, and there's one of the reasons I started this, like looking into these things is I went and my company's 401k, and I started plugging in just things just to see, and some of them are just very generic, and there was nowhere to put in, hey, I have health care. Don't try to if I want to retire at 57, don't try to charge me health care on the street. I got that covered.
Right.
There's no way to override the system. Hey, I have a pension. I don't have, I have more than just a 401k. Where do I put in the
Right.
pension amount? I have a VA disability that's not taxed, so quit trying to tell me that I need to like pay taxes on that. There's just
Hmm.
all these things that don't really, if you're trying to like use a cookie cutter approach, doesn't work. So I try to help explain people, hey, look at it from this perspective. Here's the math, and you maybe are in a better position than you thought you were, because if you're trying to compare yourself to civilians that need, $1.7 million in order to retire, well, you may have that already and just don't know about it because you're thinking about, like you said, the military retirement and the VA as a monthly amount versus the value over time. I call it net present value is the
And
formula that's kind of used for that.
so, what has probably been the most interesting or surprising thing that you've learned? Obviously, you're very savvy, but as you've been doing these videos, what is probably the most interesting or most shocking, surprising, what or might be interesting to other people thing that you've learned in developing these videos?
I think, I mean, that's probably a lot because it's still all new to me, but I thought I had, some of these things figured out for myself. You know, I I retired as a senior master sergeant, like I said, and 21 years, I was definitely on track to make chief master sergeant. And I get it. There's, nothing's ever guaranteed in life, but the cards were
Things
working
were
in my
looking
favor.
good.
And I made a decision to get out. And I knew that a chief master sergeant made more. I knew that the longer you stay in, the better your pension is. And I kind of did some math initially, that, hey, here's how much I would need to make in order to do this. But when you factor in that that pension, over the life of, the increased pension over the rest of your life, obviously you don't know how long you're going to live, right?
Right. But
So
actuarial tables are a thing.
exactly, yep. And actuarial, tell you that, hey, like if you're 100% disabled veteran, well, your life expectancy is like 67. For a normal civilian off the street, 79. If you're a male, well, it drops to 77. So, you
Hmm.
can use those assumptions to kind of give your, some idea of a baseline to start with, and then hope for the
Right.
best, or take care of yourself, take care of your health. But anyway, so you can really factor in and figure out from a financial perspective of, hey, is staying in worth it?
Hmm.
You can be really fed up with the military and not like the way things are going at the time or something like that. I know at 20 years, I was like, man, I'm so ready to be done. Um, and I still made the decision to get out, but at least I knew, hey, I'm going to have to make, which is probably surprising, I have to make over 200K for for those like 8 years in order to make that decision, worth it. And not everybody can do that. And I certainly didn't do it my first couple years out. So, um, it's a challenge, but you at least going in, like, hey, finances is a piece of the decision. It's not the whole decision though. And so those are things that I've learned along the way. But the guard and reserve, I'm glad you mentioned that, because my mentor when I got out, I used a organization called ACP, American Corporate Partners. It's for veterans to use. It's free. It's a great resource if you haven't heard of it. But my mentor I got paired up with, he was a reserve chief master sergeant. And so I would learn all these things from him. We would bounce things back and forth, and it's a whole different world. And there's a lot of, you know, AGR, art, all these things when you're on active duty, and you hear about these people and you probably work with them, but you don't know all the nuance of things. And so I've been learning a lot about that, and that, like you said, that gray area, and that gray area can be zero, depending on, if they have 20 years active duty and
Hmm.
looks just like me, or traditional reservist, and you're not getting any real benefits until you're 60, even after all that time. So,
Right. And
um,
that could be 20 years.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a
I mean,
long time to be sitting there like, yeah, I'm retired. I haven't gotten a dime yet.
right, yeah. But I think the big thing is like once you know where you're at financially, it helps you
Hmm.
make decisions. And so, at least informed decisions, right? Like you may not make the decision for you, but if coming out of the military, obviously when you make that decision, you don't know your VA rating,
Right.
but you may have a decent idea. I spent years in AFSOC, Air Force Special Operations Command, a lot of deployments. I was like, I'm probably going to get, pretty good rating, so I'm not too stressed about it. Um, so once you kind of know and have an idea of what you have,
Mm-hmm.
veterans that have, or you have a TRICARE and you have a rating from especially if it's over 50%, because you're going to get that plus your pension, you can take more risk. You can
Mm-hmm.
start a business because you don't need to work for a company where you need health insurance that a lot of people need. You already got it. You can go live in another country and just live off your retirement pay. You can get a second job. You can, go fishing
There's
every
a,
day. You can,
there's a lot
yeah,
more opportunity to do. I was reading that the number one group of entrepreneurs were people that are retiring from the military because they had that fallback of the healthcare, like, for them
yeah,
and their families. And it was, hey, that's $30,000 I don't have to go earn in a regular job.
yeah. Healthcare is not cheap, and it's definitely not getting cheaper as the
Hmm.
years go on. And
And I'm sure it
that's just
depends on where you work and what the employer pays. And there's all these factors that are going to be, dependent on the individual characteristics. But if you don't
correct.
have to work for somebody else in order to have that health care, there's a lot more things you can go do, things you might want to do instead of being forced to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so what is the biggest surprise that you think you found that people are misinformed about people that are in the military looking to retire, or not even retire from the military but former military and looking to retire at the end of their when they're of age, whatever age that is for them?
Yeah. I, I'll tell you, and it's probably not an answer you're going to want to hear, but my biggest surprise is how much confusion almost every single benefit that veterans have. Like people will debate on my page, my Facebook page, oh, you can't collect VA disability and retirement pay. No, TRICARE is free for the rest of my life. And I hate to break it. I mean, it kind of is, but when you turn 65, that actually changes.
Yeah,
You
now you
actually
got to
pay
do
more,
Medicare. Yeah.
Yeah, TRICARE is technically free, but you got to pay, so your health coverage premiums do go up.
Hmm.
And so things like that, where there's just a lot more confusion over benefits than I thought they were. And I know it's not, it's complicated, and I get it, and it's very nuanced sometimes. So there's the unknowns about the benefits is probably one of the biggest things. And definitely I mean, most people don't know like the true dollar value of things.
Oh, that's
And
that's absolutely true. Yeah, the lack of insight into the nuances is sometimes the biggest thing. We do a lot of conversations about benefits, and just like if you ask a question of a lawyer, the first answer is going to be, well, it depends.
yeah,
And that's true for benefits. There's a lot of them out there, and there are some rules of thumb, but the rules of thumb don't apply to everybody all the time. And so, yeah, when
hmm,
you were talking about, oh, you can't be retired or you can't, collect both. Well, you can if you're over 50%, or if this, or if that. And there's a lot of
right.
asterisks that go with it.
Yeah,
And it's not always clear cut and easy. But the rules generally aren't that hard. But unless they apply to you, most people don't look at them. That's when
yeah,
they all of a sudden
yeah,
start digging in, going, well, X, Y, and Z. So,
yeah.
how much is healthcare a huge issue for people that either get out and want to retire, or that retire and then want to retire, retire from the military and then want to stop working? Maybe I shouldn't call it retirement, but stop
I
working.
know. I mean, I tell people all the time I'm retired, and my buddy of mine's like, he's older than me, and he went to my retirement party. He's like, man, I'm going to a retirement party for a guy younger than me. Like, what in the world? And that was my military retirement. And he, we still joke around about that today. But
Hmm.
so I mean, healthcare, I'll tell you, I was 8 years in the military. I was planning to get out. My buddy, he was a GS, he was retired and he was leaving the GS world, had a job at a corporation. He's like, hey, we deployed together once. And so he's like, hey, I'm going to hire you, come work for me. The salary looked great. And my neighbor across the street was a retired senior master sergeant. And he's like, Randy, don't do it. Stay in. You're not thinking about it now, but healthcare, having that TRICARE is a huge benefit. And, I was young. I didn't care
Yeah,
or
you're
think
28
about
years
that
old.
type of
You're
stuff
not
back
worried
then.
about when you're 45,
Invincible.
50.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, that's so far away. And so, but if you retire from the military, I mean, if you don't retire from the military, obviously you're not going to have TRICARE, right? It's going to end the day you get out, and you're going to have to figure that out through, your employer or pay for it or however you're going to do it.
Or the VA.
Exactly. Unless you get a VA rating, right? And so
Hmm.
then you've got that. But you don't know that all the time
No.
unless you're
And that
getting,
changes.
right. Those rules do change. And so, if you're getting a medical retirement or you're getting out and because you got some medical issue or something like that, then that's a little different. You're gonna know you're gonna have VA.
Hmm.
But if you're just, you did 4 years and you're like, yeah, this isn't for me, and you're gonna get out and you don't know if you're gonna have a VA rating, well, that it changes things a little bit.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And
most people
so,
don't. You get out, you do your 4 years, you do your initial term, you get out, and you might have a year or two of coverage with the transition things if you
yeah,
pay attention and you go register and you. But 30 years
yeah.
on, you're probably not.
And you may be single when you get out
Hmm.
and you don't think about those things. And then, life changes, right? You may get married and you may have kids. Or some people tell me, haha, joke's on you, I'm not having kids. So, hey, everybody's got a different life, right? So,
The number of people
if,
I know with kids that have told me that, over the years.
right? Yeah, yeah. And so your life changes. Eventually, you're going to need health care at some point in your
Hmm.
life. And it's very expensive. Um, and you could pay, I have people at work that pay $6,500 a year for their family. That's with an insurance company paying probably a good portion. I never really looked into it
Yeah.
because I don't need it. It goes back to those things like, you don't really look into the benefits until you need it. And that's part of the problem is you don't realize how many benefits you may have eligible. And so, my wife jokes around. She's like, "Hey, your retirement plan, I have to die before you." And she's like, I'll lose your pension and your VA, and then I won't have all that income coming in from that. And so, then I'm like, well, you have my survivor benefits. And
And the
if
DIC and other things, there's
I'm not 100%.
no,
So,
okay.
the
Yeah, there's
DIC is a little,
see, this is where it goes into all the factors that
yeah,
are so unique to each particular instance.
yeah,
You know, yeah, I mean, like, your situation, my situation, and the buddy next to us in the formation is going to be slightly different.
hmm,
Obviously, some of the things are going to be the same. Yeah, you're going to get certain benefits. You retired, boom. If you have a VA rating, it also depends on, like you said, rank, years of service, VA rating. Those are all a different
yeah,
mix of
yeah,
benefits. So when I'm looking and I'm, Joe Schmo, I retired from the Army, I've got a VA rating. How do I really calculate how I'm doing for retirement? How in the world do you do that when you mentioned it earlier, the normal
net
things
present
that you go
value.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
normal things you go to aren't counting that. And you're like, hey, how do I count? I have so much in my 401k and I have Social Security. That's the two legs most people rely on. They don't normally have a pension. There's, becoming fewer and far
Right.
between, but there are some out there, here and there. But how do you do that? How do you know, like, hey, this is the same as X amount in my 401k?
Yeah. Um, so there's a formula called net present value, and it's if you watch the video, it's probably a little easier because there's a graphic
We'll put
that'll
a link
show
to
you.
it.
And it's it can be. it can be a little math heavy, I'll say. But
Right.
if you figure out how much you have coming in each year, each month, and you use this formula, what it basically does is says, okay, you have, let's just say, 5 grand coming in every month. We'll multiply that out and use some factors of, hey, you know, you have to make some assumptions, obviously, how long you're going to live, how you think the market is going to perform, um, with like inflation and stuff like that. So it takes all that into fact to account, and then it'll kind of spit out at the end. It's like, well, you got this much coming in. It's gonna, if you were to like compare yourself to somebody that says, oh, my blanking on the term here for some reason.
401k.
Um,
401k.
no, you're
How much money
um,
you have? I don't know.
yeah, you're wow, maybe you can edit this out. Net Your net worth.
Ah,
So
your net worth. Yes.
you I don't know why net worth wasn't coming to mind. So
Yeah, it happens.
if you yeah, compare yourself like, oh, you need X net worth to retire, the net present value formula takes into account how much you bring in each month, and then will spit out that what your net basically what your net worth is.
Hmm.
Obviously, you don't have it sitting in a bank account where you could withdraw it, but most people aren't going to, if they have a 401k, they're not going to withdraw it all at the same time anyways. They're going to
Right.
use some sort of withdrawal rate that they're comfortable with. Maybe it's 4%, maybe it's 6%, something like that. And that's going to give them how much money they actually can have each month or each year to live off of. And
Hmm.
that's basically what this is doing is, when you retire from the military, you have some sort of guaranteed income every single month. And that, basically having a 401k or an annuity, that's what that's doing, essentially. You can have, some people turn their 401ks into annuities so they have that guaranteed income, because, the market can change. Well,
Hmm.
guess what? When you're in the military and you have that pension, it doesn't matter what the market's doing. You
Right.
know exactly how much you're getting, and it goes up every year through COLA, which is, they use the inflation data to kind of figure out how much that is going to go up. And everybody's like, yeah, it never keeps up with inflation.
No,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
that's
better
that's
than
intentional
nothing,
on
which
their
is a
part
lot of
because
money.
they would go broke. But it keeps the system alive, to be able to pay you. If they went over inflation, well, they'd run out of money. So,
I
um,
remember
so
in high school them teaching the rule of eight and using that for investing and where the average assumption was you'd make 8% a year. Well, this was also in the 90s, right out of the 80s when that might have been true. Uh, and that's not been the case for a number of years. Of,
yeah,
you can, I mean, with good investments and things like that, but in general, if you have moderately safe investments, you're not making 8% every year. You might make, some 16% one year. It's not as steadfast of a
yeah,
rule as it used to be. But
yeah,
you have money coming in when you retire, and you also have less expenses because of healthcare, and that's a
because of
huge
healthcare.
factor.
Yeah,
If you have to spend, I remember reading somewhere it's between 10 and 30,000 a year people spend on healthcare, on insurance, depending on whether
yeah,
they get it from the market with ACA or with their company, or any all the various ways that they get it. And that's a lot of money to have to go spend that you're not spending. I think I spend
yeah.
$30 a month on TRICARE Prime right now. I think it's something like that, but it's so little I don't even pay attention to it.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're married, or if you have a family, I think it's like
Hmm.
700 and something dollars a year.
Yeah.
And there's people that pay more than that a month,
Oh, most.
and then, you know, that's just the premiums. People have
Hmm.
copays, and if depending on your TRICARE Prime or standard, but if you're Prime, most people probably are, unless they're in like some remote area. Um, you're paying $25 a copay, and
Yeah.
dirt cheap. People are like, what? And so when you think about, oh, people are spending 10, $30,000 a year on healthcare. Well, that's because they're paying premiums and all the other pieces every time they go to a doctor, and they're afraid to go to the doctor because you're like,
Hmm.
and they got to time it because of
Like
their deductible.
HSAs and yeah,
Yeah.
and deductibles and all
So
these other factors that
things that we don't even it just on top of the finance part, it just makes
Mhm.
life more complicated. You're thinking about all these things like, oh, do I go now? Do I want this referral now, or do I want to wait till next year when I'm gonna have, a bunch in my are going to meet the deductible? So you're like kind of waiting. Like, I don't, none of us think about that sort of stuff.
So I know
And
you get a ton of questions on your YouTubes. What is probably the most oddball but decent question that you've gotten? Like you're like, I never even thought about that.
yeah, I think it's the more nuanced questions where, somebody medically retired, and it's a lot. Sometimes it seems like the question is coming from a spouse,
Hmm.
and they're trying to help understand like what kind of benefits are they entitled to at that point. Maybe their spouse is older, and their health is declining, and so I think the oddball questions are those nuanced things. And maybe I give an example is, somebody got out. He Actually, I just had one the other day. This was I've never heard of this happening. This was a Guard or Reserve member. I can't remember, but he thought he had 20 good years, and he retired and got out, and then
Hmm.
found out that he only had 19, and he's not getting a retirement, and he's already over 60. And I'm like, how does that even happen? And then talking to other people, it's like, oh well, yeah, it's complicated. When back then you didn't that like if you're Air Force Reserve today, you go on virtual MDF and you can see your points.
Right.
But they didn't have that easy before, and so you had to pull the
It's very
records and
paperwork, a lot of paper,
yeah, yeah,
literally paper and things got lost, that kind of stuff.
yeah. And so can you imagine having 19 years and no retirement, thinking you're going to have one, and thinking you're going to not only have the retirement, but you're not going to have TRICARE. It's a traditional reservist, the traditional guardsman, like one of the two. But you get when you turn 60, you get TRICARE, and you get your retirement check kicks in. And if you're planning your whole life thinking you're going to have that, you probably left, a long time ago. Um, that that's a major financial setback that's going
Oh,
to
huge.
cost them more than he, probably planned for. And so things like that are it's those very nuanced
Hmm.
questions that come up. And the great thing is like, I may not know it, but somebody in the community knows it. And
Yeah.
so it's always the community coming together that like we are here helping each other figure things out, because it's the best way to really do it. And so that
I
that
worked
kind
with
of
a guy
is,
that worked 18 and a half years and they did the rifts back in the day. And at 18 and a half years, right on track, everything was good. They forced him out. And so he gets no retirement, nothing. And like, we talked a bunch, there's a number of things he was trying to do to get, some sort of accommodation, but uh,
yeah,
things happen. And, it was kind of crazy to think he's, right at that cusp, supposed to be in the safe harbor area of, once you hit 18 years, generally
yeah,
they're not going to kick you out unless, you do something wrong. But
right,
generally you're in that safe harbor. But yeah, he totally got screwed. I mean, I was like, oh my
yeah,
gosh.
that's
So
painful.
I've watched almost every one of your videos. I think I've watched them all. I didn't pay as close attention to the Garden Reserve. I probably should have because I'm not Garden Reserve. But I did watch one about you have several about TSP, and I
Mm,
took that to mean more just like 401k investing, the government TSP, the military
yeah,
TSP, and 401k all as one conglomerated term. What is the biggest mistake people make with TSP 401k investing?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, when I came in, they didn't have TSP. You may be in the same boat. And it came out while I was in, early in during my career. And so I didn't really, there wasn't a lot of, I feel like there wasn't a lot of information out about it. I didn't really know about it, or maybe I just didn't care. Um, and all my money at the time, when it was defaulted to the G fund. They
Hmm.
have since changed that, thankfully. But the G fund is like bonds. It's like it's like a savings account basically, and well, probably better than a savings account
But
in
not by
today's, but
much.
maybe not how you get savings, not by much, right? And so you're not. It's not an investment per se. You're not even keeping up with inflation, and so Um, people, had some money sitting in the G fund for years, like myself. There's a lot of stories about that. And then later got more educated and figured out how to, I can move all these other funds. And now
Hmm.
there's life cycle funds. And so now for those that are coming in since 2018, they're on the blended retirement system. And this is where, my pension started at 50% in 20 years, and there's no TSP match. If I contributed a TSP, great. If not, it, I mean, obviously you want to contribute, but it's not
Yeah.
gonna I'm not missing out on money if I don't contribute to TSP, so I could contribute somewhere else and have some sort of income or investment. So, but now, for those on the BRS system, when they retire at 20 years, and this is one that's actually a lot of people don't realize, you still get a pension. It's 40%.
Hmm.
It's not 50. And the offset there is they do a TSP match of 5%. So if you're not contributing 5%, it's 100% for, basically 100% return on your money. There's
You
nowhere
give
else in you.
5%, they give 5%.
Yeah, it's a match. And so if you're not doing the 5%, you're literally leaving money on the table. And
Hmm.
it's more important to that generation to contribute than it was for my generation because of that match. It's very similar to working in a private sector where, yeah, your company has a 401k and they're going to be a match. And there's always like different types of matches that may be, the 100% up to 5% and then half percent or something like that. There's always
Hmm.
different things. So you have to kind of look out for that. But the TSP is 5% once you become eligible. I think it's a year or 2 years. And so you have to not have to you really should contribute to the TSP more so than people in the previous generations that say, "Oh, don't worry about you got your pension." Well, you do, but it's 40% instead of 50.
Right.
And so that if the more you contribute when you're younger, you
The more the
allow
money
time.
works.
Yeah, it's work. That's what people say. You let your money work for you. It's because of compounding interest. And over the years, at some point in your life, you could get to where your interest is actually growing faster than you're contributing.
Hmm.
And so if you don't start when you're young, then that may not happen though. So
Yeah.
the
You got to
value of
build that
time.
initial foundation.
Yeah. And so, I I get it.
That's fascinating.
I was an airman. I was a first sergeant as well. I did it myself, and I see others doing it. Um, you're in the dorms, or maybe you're in base housing, and you get a new car because you just got a promotion. And maybe you're like me. I didn't come from money, and so we talked about budgeting, but that's it as a house. Like growing up, like, we didn't investments was not a topic in our
That
house.
wasn't a line item on the budget. It was, mortgage
Right.
payment, rent, or rent,
Yeah.
or an electric bill and water bill and groceries,
Yeah. And so when
not
you,
not all
you
the
might join the
rest.
military and you're on your own for the first time, and you all of a sudden have some income, steady income coming in. It's very easy to go out and get a new car because guess what? Those car dealerships sit out right outside the gate all the time.
Yeah,
Just show your
it's
LES
a
and
trope. It's a trope now of all of outside the base 25%. for that brand new Camaro or whatever,
Yeah.
the hottest car is. And it is interesting with the BRS, the blended retirement system. It is a radically different, though there are some components that are the same, but it's a mishmash of folks that are getting some TSP or 401k. If you don't
Yeah.
have TSP, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
And
pretty much. Yeah.
a traditional retirement, but there is an offset to it. And so you have to be more involved in your own retirement planning for
You
the
do.
folks that are currently in. You can't just, oh, I'll have my pension and that'll be it. Well, you're getting 10%
Yeah.
off the top
Right.
before, 20 years, but you can
That
also
adds up a
retire at
lot.
different points. There's other factors that people need to take into consideration. So it's not a 20 years and that's it, minimum, which
Right.
is different. The old heads that have been out for a while, that knew how it was for decades. Well, things have changed a little
Hmm.
bit.
Yeah.
Definitely go check out the Enlisted Millionaire and figure out what the new rules are, what the things you need to take into consideration, and also how to make really solid investments without paying a ton in all the investment fees. And there's a lot of people that will sell you things that you don't need, and I've seen it. We've all seen it, especially near military bases. I hate to say it, but there's a predatory actions out there.
Hmm.
People are taking advantage of folks. Yes, you absolutely do need whole life insurance, or which could be
Yeah.
perfect for
Could
you.
be.
However,
Could be. Yep.
but in many cases it's not. But in many cases it is. But you aren't going to get the greatest advice necessarily from someone who is not as interested in making a paycheck as it is just getting good advice. So go check out
Yeah.
the Enlisted Millionaire. So I've watched all your videos. I've learned a bunch of things, and I was kind of surprised at some of the things you went over, thinking, "Oh, that's so basic," but it's really not. I realized as I'm watching, going, "This is some pretty advanced, nuanced things that folks don't really take into consideration until you're about to retire, which is the wrong time to
Right.
be having that
It's
that
too late.
conversation."
Yeah. Yeah. It's I mean, there's definitely, I feel like I learned the hard way on some of these things, and
Hmm.
I want to share that, hey, like you don't have to learn, it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
Now, some things are a little more challenging and need some explanation. You think about going back to TSP. Well, do I do Roth or traditional?
Hmm.
You got to figure that out. Like,
Right.
for people that got, didn't even have TSP, it's not even something they had to think about. But now, you got to be educated, make that decision, because there's long-term impacts when you actually go to withdraw that money on what that's going to look like in your bank account. So it's very simple, like, oh, TSP, but then it gets complicated really fast once you make there's a lot of people do I do Roth or traditional? I want to say I'm not a financial advisor. I work for a finance company. I'm not in finance. I'm a project manager, and my job is to help connect dots on my day job. And so I apply that here. It's like helping connect dots. There's all these resources out there,
Hmm.
but how does it work for you? Um, and I just kind of help people bridge, figure that out. So
And that's a really good point. Randy is not a finance advisor. He's just going over what works. Here's the basic stuff. Here's, what you should be looking for, as opposed to try to sell you something or sign you up or one of those things, which I think is
yeah,
really important of discriminating between the various things is, hey, here's some really good advice, as opposed to, here's some really good advice. Now sign up with me and X, Y, and Z.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm not selling
one
anything.
has your
I'm not
better
making any
interest in mind.
money. If you pick one or the other, it doesn't impact me. I'm just here to give financial education so you can make the right decision.
Hmm.
Uh, there's definitely great, companies out there that help with things. But there's so many free resources to veterans. I think that's like the key is like figure out your free resources. See, okay, are they free because there's a reason? Sometimes
Right.
not everything in life is free, but many times there are because they're they're funded through some government program or something like that, or they make their money in some other way. And
Hmm.
like my company has a thing called corporate social responsibility. They set money aside to help with programs to help veterans, other other
Other
groups.
groups.
So
That makes a
um,
lot of sense.
yeah,
So
it's
one of the videos I wanted to talk about, just touch on briefly, it's your
yeah,
runaway most popular video. It's kind of went viral. It was well, the first one that I watched. It was talking about, your retirement and your disability. How much is that worth? And in the headline of it, it was like, in the instance you use, it's like $1.7 million. And if I went
yeah.
to a
I mean,
veteran, I said, "Hey, look, you've got a net worth of about 1.7 between your retirement and VA," people would probably laugh at you, but you go through the numbers and you show that present value and how it contributes to your net worth. And it's like really eye-opening.
yeah. And I used, I think a fair assumption. It wasn't anything. It wasn't like an oh 06 100% rating. I used
Hmm.
an E7 that did 20 years and they got 80% disability rating. And
Right? Those
that
are
person,
very routine, normal, middle of the
yeah,
road kind of things.
yeah. Obviously, there's people that retire at lower rank, and there's plenty of people that retire at higher rank, and
Higher or longer or
or
more VA, or yeah,
exactly.
there's a lot, but that's pretty
So
reasonable.
yeah, and the 80% obviously, you know, depending on your era is going to really depend, matter. And if you
Right.
retired a long time ago and your rating is lower, well, look into the PACT Act because a lot of things change. You may have been denied something before that you're eligible for now,
Hmm.
but 80% for my generation, keeping in mind, GWAT era, tons of deployments, uh,
25 years of
like
straight
you just,
combat
yeah, it's
has
it's
a
a lot of
cost.
people deployed, and there's a cost, right, and a toll on your body, and so that person, an E7 at 20 years with 80%, their net worth, just that alone, is 1.7 million. And if I walked up to a retired master sergeant and that person, I'd be like, "Hey, millionaire," they would not think they're a millionaire. And so
Right?
it's eye-opening to see the value. And that doesn't count, hey, when you turn 65, you're going to get Social Security.
Hmm.
It doesn't, your expenses are going to be lower because you're not paying for childcare. You're probably going to pay, hopefully you're not paying for childcare at 65, but
But
you're
you
going to be
might,
not going to
but
be
yeah,
paying for healthcare.
right?
You certainly, everybody's situation. So that was the eye opening, and that I had 100 subscribers on my channel at the time, and I think I got to like over 1,000 from that video. I wasn't prepared for it, but obviously it it spoke to so many people, and that's
Hmm.
why it took off. I
And if you retire, I mean, these are all very reasonable things. It's not,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, that's a Lieutenant Colonel '05 with 25 years and 100%. Well, those are kind of extreme on the tail end of
right,
percentages.
yeah,
That's the 5%, not the 60%, which you're
yeah,
probably more than the 60% of people fall in that category one way or the other. So folks, go check out the Enlisted Millionaire. It's on YouTube. We'll have the links in the show notes, so you don't have to go hunt it down. Randy, is what a wonderful service you're doing for veterans to be able to sort of put this really good information out there where they can find it. It's super easy and answer a lot of questions that they may have. I know you're continuing to make new shows to address some of these questions and some of the nuances. You're never going to run out of information or things to talk about because there are a
yeah,
million billion things to talk about. But yeah, there's a million benefits out there as well. I was literally talking with somebody the other day about veteran benefits, about not retirement, about burial benefits. And if you haven't
yeah,
priced out what it costs to get, buried or to have that ceremony, it's tens of thousands of dollars. But
yeah,
you can go pre-register with the VA today, and just like you do with the to do a home loan, they give you a certificate of eligibility, and you can do it well in advance, anytime. And so when you go to have it, it's already pre-done, everything's already set up. I was like, oh wow, okay, that's pretty easy. Boom, there's
Yeah.
thousands. Obviously, you won't care as much, but your family will care. So I'm just saying there's a million benefits out there. Go take advantage of them. They're there for you, and really invest wisely because you're going to live a long time, hopefully. But you got to be able to have that money and resources, and you probably have more than you think. And so go check out how to best maximize it. Randy, again, thank you so much for coming on Coming Home Well.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
It's awesome, folks. Go check out the YouTube page. We'll put the link. There's a bunch of really great information. Talk to you soon, Randy.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Thanks for joining us this week on Coming Home Well with Dr. Tyler Pieron. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. Thanks again. And until all are home and all are well, this is Coming Home Well.